Good evening and welcome to the Winton Woods Board of Education meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. on Monday, the 25th of September, 2017. If everyone could please turn your electronic devices to silent, that would be greatly appreciated. And if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Seymour, would you please call our roll this evening?
Sure. Mr. Birdie? Present. Dr. Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Present.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Present.
Mrs. Miranda?
Present. Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Our first item on the agenda this evening is our district honors, recognitions, gifts, and introductions. Superintendent Smith, you have the floor.
Okay. So is there a Kiwanis representative here? Thank you. So our first award is Character is Key. And in order to receive this award, you have to have incredible character, meaning you have to do things right like almost all of the time. Not exactly all the time, but kind of, all right? So there's a young lady that I'm going to call up, and usually we get one letter from a particular teacher. Well, this one's exceptional because there are 3 letters. And I think people were just dying to write something about Mina. Yes. Come on. So I'm going to tell people about you. Is that okay? All right. Okay. Mina has only been in my classroom for a few short weeks, but has made a model student. Has been a model student thus far. Every time she's presented with a challenge, she tackles it head on. She is eager and ambitious to do her best. Mina is a great role model for her fellow classmates. She follows all directions in class, pays attention to her teacher, shows respect to her classmates, and always shows her best effort. Mina is showing more and more signs of being a leader every day she's with us. She helps other students that are struggling in class. She shares all materials and responsibilities and is great in working in small groups. Mina has exercised all qualities that it takes to be a caring and responsible student. I can't wait to see what the year holds for her. And this is from Rebecca Mize, her teacher. So, wow. Another teacher was anxious. She says, I know that it's only really one teacher, but can I write something too? And I said, of course. When I was in 2nd grade, it was probably like 50 teachers that want to write great stuff about me, so I know how Mina feels. All right. Okay, folks. All right. Even the board? Really?
Yeah. Even the board.
When I heard that Mina was chosen for receiving the award for responsibility, I was not surprised. I was thrilled to be asked to share my thoughts about her when she was in my kindergarten class. You're in 2nd grade then? Yes. Wow, that's a long time ago. This award is absolutely well-deserved for Mina. Even as a 5-year-old in kindergarten, she displayed maturity and responsibility beyond a typical child of that age. She became my go-to student almost immediately. She was always eager to please, and she took on every task and request without ever complaining or showing any kind of frustration. I remember specifically the year she was in my class that we had new students join later in the school year. Without being asked, Mina would make an effort to buddy up with them and show them the ropes of room 19. You remember room 19? Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. The other memory that stands out in my mind about Mina's character was when she showed responsibility for her actions and the actions of a few friends. She and 2 of her classmates were playing on the playground, and another friend wanted to join them. The other 2 classmates wanted to play with Mina, so they told her no. That student came to me upset about it, and when I approached the girls to talk about it, Mina was visibly upset. She told me that she wanted to have them all play, but she didn't want to make her friends mad. At that time, she took responsibility for having a part in making someone sad, and she apologized without prompting. In addition, she told the other girls they should all play together, and she took the hand of the classmate that led the others off, and they all went to play. Wow. So I know you guys are thinking 17. No, 5 years old. Anyone who takes responsibility for their actions is most certainly a person of good character, and it was especially heartwarming to see it come from a 5-year-old. I must also mention kudos to Mina's mom, Shayna, as I know she has worked hard to instill such great qualities in her daughter. Mina has obviously continued on at Primary North, setting good examples for others, not only responsibility, but with integrity and respect. Congratulations, Mina. Wow, and that came from Miss Wilkie. You remember Miss Wilkie?
Yes.
All right. And so here's the final one. This one came from Miss Katie Lambier, art teacher. Mina impressed me with her responsibility within the first hour of school on the first day this year. How do you do it the first hour, the first day? That had to be pretty awesome. It was as if summer break never happened. Mina entered the art room perfectly following our procedure. She was engaged with her eye contacts, posture, and hand raised to answer questions, an excellent role model for her peers. Mina's responsibility carried into the artwork she made that day, as she intently worked on our artwork and followed our protocol for cleanup. I've seen Mina in class and in the lunchroom since the first day, and she continued to be a student her peers can look up to. This is the 3rd year I've had the pleasure of teaching Mina. She's always been a hard-working, responsible student. I'm so glad Winton Woods Primary North can count on her to be an excellent example for all students in our building, and I look forward to seeing her continue to grow into a responsible leader this year. Character, responsibility.
Mina, the Winton Woods, or the Green Hills Forest Park Kiwanis wants to give you a certificate that recognizes that you have won this character award, and on the back is a gift certificate for you to go to Barnes & Noble. And you can buy as many books as you want. Perfect.
Ready? And one more.
All right, Mina, don't leave yet. I found there was one more letter. I'm sorry. Yes.
Wow.
This one came from Mr. Wright, the PE teacher. I've had the pleasure to teach Mina. She's always positive and a big help in class. Other students seem to gravitate around Mina. See? Yeah. She's always smiling and having fun. She also follows the rules and leads by example. Mina's here in time for Primary North and has been a model student every single day. Mina. Wow. All right, so here's a tough question. Who did you bring with you tonight?
My 2 grandparents and my mother.
All right, you brought them along with you. All right, okay. So 2 grandparents and mother, come up, please.
We're going to take a picture of everybody. Scoot back towards the middle.
Yes, absolutely. There we go.
You look so tall right there. I can't stand on that step. I might have to get jumped off in the picture. Very good.
All right. Next Gold Star Kiwanis Student of the Month Award goes to Isaac Sneed. Is Isaac here? All right. here, Isaac. All right. Isaac Sneed is a senior AGS student. He maintains all A's and B's, despite a rigorous course load and being a member of the cross-country team. This month, through Principal Eric Martin, received an email that blew us all away. The email was from the parent of a student on the Roger Bacon's cross-country team. The email read, "Good morning, coaches. I want to take the time to let you know that I'm very impressed with Isaac Sneed as a runner and, more importantly, fellow human. Jacob Byer from Roger Bacon took a tree root tumble, and Isaac stopped to make sure he was okay. They ran the whole race together from the start and finished together. Glad Isaac did come in ahead at the end for doing the right thing. Jacob is out of running for a bit with a concussion from the fall. Please pass this message along to this fine young man. By sacrificing his own race to help a fellow runner, Isaac demonstrated the warrior spirit in a way we have never seen before. The entire Winton Woods community is very proud to call him one of our own." Wow, that's awesome. What made you do it?
It's just out of my generally good nature. I saw him fall, and I knew that I had to help him up because I didn't know if he was hurt, if he was all right. So I stopped, asked him if he was all right, helped him back up, and continued running
Together.
together.
Way to go. Way to go.
Good job.
You know, we can talk about awards and trophies and championships and all of that, but this is what real character is about. It's not about first place, it's about helping people in the human race. So, you know what, we are very, very proud of you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So Isaac, for you also is a certificate from the Green Hills Forest Park Kiwanis. You get the Gold Star Chili Card, which if you're a runner, I'm sure you need.
All right, before he takes the picture, who did you bring?
I brought my father.
Dad, come on up.
Great.
See, Dad is a patient man. You know, if I had a son, I got a son, but he's not like him. But if I had a son and he was so courageous to help another person through that race, if I'm Dad in the back row, I'm anxious. Call me up. Call me up. Bravo. Now, this young man that's coming up now for the Skyline Athlete of the Month, I've seen him help some people up, but it's not quite the way Isaac did it. It's a little different, all right? So I'm going to read a little bit about Mr. Evan Blackwell. All right. Evan, we had a meeting last week, and he was in one of my groups, and I was mentioning to Evan about the LaSalle game. You know what he said? Superintendent, don't worry about that. We got this.
Yes, they did.
You tried to tell me. I'll listen. So, Evan, what about next? No, well, don't ask that. All right. All right. Senior Evan Blackwell Stevens was named Winton Woods City Schools Skyline Student Athlete of the Month for September. Blackwell Stevens participates in football. To be nominated for the Skyline Student Athlete of the Month, students must maintain an academic standard of 3.0 or above, show respect for coaches, teammates, officials, teachers, other students, and family, show enthusiasm and a positive attitude, display commitment to practice, games, and personal skill development, demonstrate honesty in playing by the rules, have high moral character. Evan is a great kid, said Andre Parker. Kid? Okay. Winton Woods High School head football coach. He is always on time and does the right thing. He's a perfect leader. Evan is a 3-year starter and is always helping his teammates in practice. The Skyline Student Athlete of the Month is sponsored by the Forest Park Skyline, a business partner of Winton Woods City Schools. Student athletes honored will receive a Skyline Chili gift card. Thank you, Evan Blackwood. All right, say a few words.
Say what?
Just
Well, I just wanted to say it was hard to get this. They pushed me every day for my grades, and if I slack off, I gotta run to the other practice. And I just want to thank y'all for giving me this award.
you earned this award. Absolutely.
You earned it.
So, who did you bring with you tonight?
Alderman.
All right. Come on up. Come on up. Wow.
Really?
What position do you play, Evan?
Linebacker.
Linebacker. What's your number?
10.
10. Oh, way to go.
Very good.
Tell us where you want it. So I have people on this stuff. Okay.
Hey, Evans, while you're getting ready, I do have one question. Why didn't you catch number 6? Yes, I saw that. I looked at it 3 times, sir. Yes, I saw it 3 times. 6 ran right past you, Evan.
We'll get him next time.
Okay, all right. That's why I want to know your number.
He'll get him next time.
Wasn't his hand.
All right, let me get that grand in there.
Wasn't having a game.
I was there.
1, 2, 3.
Never gonna get no lead.
Thank you.
I think
Where is
It's the
that?
first thing.
Where is that?
Okay, all right. I'm gonna take you up on that.
All right.
Yes, true that.
Our next recipient for the Skyline Teacher of the Month. Now we're on the teacher section.
Yeah.
Exciting. Kara Love. Kara Love, an English and language arts teacher at Winton Woods High School, is hailed by Assistant Principal Tim Martin as an outstanding example of excellence in the teaching profession. Kara continues to demonstrate excellent leadership as a member of the Winton Woods High School Culture Committee, said Mr. Martin. Love was chosen as the District Skyline Teacher of the Month for September. Kara worked with the team throughout the summer planning for the high school's culture building activities in preparation for the 2017-18 school year, said Martin. She is an integral and vocal part of the team that is working to create a positive school culture that will provide the best educational environment for the Winton Woods High School students and staff as we embrace the new tech ideals of trust, respect, and responsibility. To be nominated for the Skyline Teacher of the Month, teachers must demonstrate excellence in the classroom, motivation by encouraging and motivating students, leadership by having a positive attitude with students, parents, colleagues, and the community, creativity and imagination by demonstrating creativity in teaching in a way that inspires students to learn, dedication by showing excellent attendance, punctuality, and overall dependability, and finally, communication by communicating effectively to their classrooms, parents, colleagues, and beyond. Our Winton High School nominates Kara Love for the Skyline Teacher of the Month, and we are very, very excited. Thank you for being here.
Should I say a few words?
You should say a few words.
Okay. Thank you so much. This really means a lot to me. I started my career here at Winton Woods High School as a student teacher. And I have learned a lot. I have not left. This is my 5th year at Winton Woods. I actually taught Evan and Isaac as freshmen, and we made it. All right. So I've learned a lot, and this has been just a great district to work in. Lots of opportunities for growth, and it really does take a village. You know, I have an amazing team at the high school that I'm very thankful for. And yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for thinking of me.
Way to
That's
go.
all right.
One of the things that's very prideful about Winton Woods City Schools is our experience with students from other cultures and other countries. And we are very excited. This is when it becomes a little tough because these 26, we have students from 26 different countries, 26 different languages spoken. And when you are the superintendent and they want you to read these names, it becomes very interesting. I wish I was pronouncing Cara Love right now, but I'm not. So the first, this is the host family, Mr. and Mrs. Denning. Can you come up, please? Are they here? Mr. Denning. I wanted Mr. Denning to come up first because if I get it right, that's good. And if I don't, I'm sure he knows her name. Okay? I wanted to try it, sir. Oh, okay. All right. Humala. Ayub. Come up. So I read about her where she wanted to come and be part of Winton Woods City Schools, and I'm telling you folks, her resume is absolutely impressive. She has so many different experiences. I saw pictures of you with your classmates. You look happy. Are you happy here?
Yeah, I'm really happy here.
Okay, all right, okay. And are they treating you okay?
Yes, they are. They are really good people. They are caring, they're kind, they're loving, and I'm having a really good time at school as well as with my host family and here in USA. I've also joined a sports. I am in the rowing team.
Wow.
And I am going to have my first race on Saturday, and I am a rower as well as the coxswain. And I have my coxswain right here, and which helps me to cox, to give orders to my fellows. And yes, I'm having really good experiences here. I am trying new things, learning new things, learning the values and cultures of USA. And it was a bit hard coming here, but finally I made it, and thank you so much for honoring me with this thing. It means really a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Okay, so where are you from?
I am from Pakistan.
Okay, were you a rower in Pakistan?
No.
Okay. All right. So you come to U.S. with and get a new set of adventures and opportunities.
Yes, really new. They're like all of the things are really new for me.
All right, and they are very excited.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, very, very well. Is Antonia here?
You want to attempt it?
Antonia Fantashinu Soku. Sorry. Good enough. If I didn't get any boos out there, that was good enough for me. Okay, so tell me what brings you to the U.S.
Oh, it was pretty hard to choose a country because there's a lot of options. But I don't know, I think it's really diverse, so I could, get a lot of different experiences. So, and also a lot of my family people have come to the U.S. as exchange students. So, yeah, I wanted to try it.
You want to try it?
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
But it's been really good. It's really well.
So why don't you say something to the audience in your native tongue?
In Spanish?
Yes.
Okay.
First, tell us where you're from.
Yes.
Oh, I'm from Chile,
Okay.
South America. Yeah.
Let's see if they understand what you're saying. Go ahead.
Me gusta mucho estar acá. Ha sido una experiencia muy bonita. Mi familia es muy buena conmigo y la escuela aquí es muy interesante. Y llevo 2 meses y espero irme con la mejor experiencia en este semestre.
Now watch me. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Yes. Tell them what you said.
Oh, I said that I have a really great experience. I've been here only for 2 months, but it's been really good. I mean, as Sumaila said, at the beginning it was hard, but now my family treats me well, and it's been really good, and I hope this experience is really good on the semester that I'm being here.
All right. Is there someone from the host family here? Miss Long?
It's my host mom and my host sister.
Come on up, please. All right, let's get a beautiful picture. Okay, finally, the Community Spirit Award goes to a lady who I think is absolutely incredible. She inspires others. She is a trooper. She is a hard worker. She is dedicated and committed to the High Schools That Work process. She was one of the people that was instrumental in bringing middle schools that work. And now it's elementary schools that work. And I'd like to introduce my friend, Miss Linda Radke. Ms. Radke is the executive director of the organization of High Schools That Work, and we have been partners with her for 19 years?
That's right.
19 years. Very well. So, Ms. Radke.
Well, I have to say that thanks to Winton Woods for hosting us in your district. We like living here. It's been a great experience, and Winton Woods received an award from us this last week for all of the innovations that you have. Our main focus is high expectations for all students, and I see it written on the wall here. So I think Winton Woods is a prime example of what we want to do, and you have a great staff here, Terry, Anthony. We think a lot of all of you, so thank you so much for this award. Appreciate it very much.
Very well. Thank you. Dr. Holden, come up here. Come up. Hold on. One more.
She's gonna teach.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Madam President and Board, that is the end of the district honors, recognitions, gifts, and introductions.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Smith. Congratulations again to all of our amazing students, our amazing staff, and our amazing partners. We thank you so much, and right now we're going to take a 5-minute recess. All right, our meeting is now back in session, and we have no public comments this evening, so we will move right into item 5 on our agenda, the approval of minutes as attached.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second. It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie? Since I missed the last meeting because of a death in my family, I am going to abstain.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes, and we'll move right into item 6 on our agenda. And Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
For the financial report ending the month of August, our year-to-date revenues were at 14.3, with month-to-date in the general fund at 3.5, and that was basically due to real estate collections on our final personal property settlement, and also for a state foundation. You'll notice that our year-to-date expenditures for the 2 months were $8 million, and that puts us currently just slightly under budget. But as you know, in the beginning of the year, we tend to spend a lot more in the beginning of the year than we do as we get towards the end of the year, especially in your contracts and obviously in your supplies for teaching and learning and in your classroom. This year, currently, we have 75.3 million, of which 20 million was the general fund, 10 million in our building fund, and of course 44 million in our classroom facilities. And unless you have any questions, that's the first 60 days summary of your financials.
Any questions for Mr. Seymour? All right. Seeing none, we will let the financial statements from the month of August 2017 be submitted to audit. And Mr. Seymour, back to you for 7.01.
For the month of August, we had 94.4 million invested and earned 94,500 for the month. In interest rates ranging from 0.02 to 1.2. We did take a look at since the inception of our bond proceeds, and year-to-date collections on our local fund on interest income is approaching 300,000. So we'll continue to monitor that because I'm sure those funds will be needed down the road.
You said 0.02 or 0.2?
I'm sorry?
You said it ranged from
0.02 to 1.2, sorry, percent.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the investment report as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Seymour? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Is that seconded by Dr. Johnson?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And Mr. Seymour, back to you for 7.02.
It was in your, if you recall, it was in our appropriations resolution. This will be the first year within the last 6 years, I believe, that we've had to transfer funds from our general fund to any other fund. Requesting as appropriated to transfer $20,000 from the general fund to our athletic fund. And as you know, our athletic fund is in need of proceeds to continue to fund the extracurricular events. Our athletic fund tends to only be able to cover our officials, our overhead, training, and supplies. We have tried to, as much as we can, support the athletic fund by purchasing equipment and their uniforms, but we are in need of additional funds to fund their overhead. And this transfer of funds will be not come back to the general fund. They will stay within the athletic fund, still in the district, but going from general fund to your athletic program. And unless you have any questions, I would request that we transfer $20,000 from the general fund to the athletic fund for our athletic program as requested.
Board, a motion would be in order.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer of the funds in the amount of $20,000 from the general fund to the high school athletic fund as requested.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And Treasurer Seymour, your last one, 7.03.
As you know, we have what's called our tax shelter annuity program in the district, where employees can elect to invest dollars in what's called a 403B government-sponsored tax sheltered annuity program, and those funds are invested tax-free until they are eligible to retire or turn 55. Many of our employees have been asking for the option to not only do what's known as a tax deferred compensation into a tax sheltered program, which does money market or however they and their tax advisor decide, but they also would like to add Roth IRAs to that. And in order to do the Roth IRAs in our tax deferred program, I request a resolution from the Board of Education giving me the permission to start that program, and we also have to sign agreements with our 403B provider to start the process of doing that. In order to get started, and in the process, we're only going to do our two major companies right now, which are AXA Advisors and ING Voya. ING Voya currently is where the teachers' severance goes when they retire. Our teachers have selected, in lieu of cash payment, taxable cash payments, those funds are deferred until January 1st following retirement into a tax-deferred compensation plan. So Voya has a lot of our employees as a client, and AXA has a lot of our clients. And then maybe 10 other companies have one or two people. So in order to get started, we're going to do agreements with those two companies. And also the people that have requested the Ross from me mostly are in those two companies. So we're trying to branch out a little and start something that's being requested by our employees and try to offer another option for our employees as a benefit for them to defer into a Roth. I guess if you have any questions, I think I've tried to explain it, but currently you already have what's called the tax shelter compensation program, but it's tied to non-Roth, and the federal government requires if you want to do Roth that it specify Roth.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution approving revisions to the OASBO Section 457 plan as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Douglas?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And Superintendent Smith, we turn to you for 8.01.
Board, there are a lot of exciting events that are taking place, but I jotted down a few that I think would be of real interest to you. On October 4th, Preschool Project 1 Exhibition Night. This is the first launch of the preschool. So if people could attend, that would be excellent. The hours are 6 to 7 p.m. So I think Principal Stiles would be very excited to see the board come out to witness the showcase of our We Warriors in Exhibition Night. And then on October 5th, National Honor Society induction ceremony, 6 p.m. at the elementary building. October 12th, for young people who may be watching this Waycross review, there are 14 days left in this quarter, meaning if you have great grades, keep them up. If you don't, get busy. 14 days. Then October 13th, no school for students, professional development. But it's also our homecoming parade. And we are featured to play against an opponent that I think will be a worthy opponent. I won't mention them on air, but go Warriors. October 16th, second quarter begins. And for young people out there who've managed to make some great grades and keep your head above water and do excellent academically, start October 16th off like you did at the beginning of the year. October 20th is the report card distribution, and I am really excited about October 20th as well. That will be the first spelling bee at 2 p.m. at the elementary building. So if you could manage to change some things around in your schedule, I'm sure the young people will be very excited. There are a host of other events that are taking place, but these are the ones that just caught my eye. So.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. We'll move right into 8.02, sir.
Yes, Dr. Holden's going to come up. Please keep in mind, you have had the opportunity to see a snapshot of the report card at the State of the Schools, and Dr. Holden's going to take us into a deeper dive.
Thank you, Dr. Holden.
Not to say it's going to be exciting, but make sure this is working here. Okay, as Mr. Smith said, you've seen or heard about most of this except for the progress, which was not yet available at the State of the Schools. So what you have here are the overall report card components. So there's no district grade yet. That comes in FY19. So actually FY18, the end of this year. So these are the 6 components. So, you know, I'll just let you look at those. I'm going to go through each one of them individually and talk a little bit about how the state arrives at that calculation. So if you go to the first one, well, before we do, I want to mention that we have just ended what the state calls safe harbor. So safe harbor means that there are no consequences for teachers or students, and we were in a 3-year safe harbor. That is because the state changed tests. Really, within 2 years, they changed tests completely. So not only are there no consequences for students and teachers, there are no consequences for schools. So if a school has a certain designation, like challenge school, support school, etc., that stays until the end of this year. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. So basically, if a school improved significantly and they were in one of those categories, they wouldn't be able to move out.
Right. Just kind of hold harmless for 3 years. Okay, so the first component is achievement. So for this year, the district grade is a D. Achievement is made up of several things. First of all, we have indicators met, and then how well the students perform, which is performance index. And then it's in this component that gifted is also thrown. It's not always so clear when you look at the report card, but gifted lives in this component. So the first part, indicators met, that's simply based on test. What percentage of our students meet the proficient threshold, which is now for every test 80%. That's a big jump. So what you have here are the test indicators. So reading and math at grade 3, reading, math, and social studies at grade 4, reading, math, and science at 5, reading, math, and social studies at 6, reading and math at 7, reading, math, science at 8. Now you see something interesting at the middle school. So they also get a grade for Algebra 1 and Geometry, because those are high school end of course exams for students who take those in the middle school. And then for the high school, it's all of the end of course, English 1, English 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology. I've listed physical science, although the state has moved away from that, but if you're trying to do the math, it doesn't equate.
No,
So American government, U.S. history, and then gifted. So there can be, for a district, up to 27 indicators. I will say this year the state has backed off. There is no social studies test at grade 4, grade 6, 4 and 6.
Dr. Holden, you mentioned the threshold changed to 80%.
Yes.
Can you let the board know what the original number was?
Well, before that, it was different per grade level. So you could go from 50 some odd up, different for each grade level and test. Now it's 80%.
Consistent across all.
Yes.
They raised the bar like. But
Yeah,
there
it was
no
a
gradual
significant increase. So, okay, indicators met. And you know, there's no magic to this slide. It's 0. And that means, did you have at least 80% of your students meet the indicators in those tested areas? So to this, we're going to look at performance index. This is probably the more powerful piece. So this says, of those students who took the test, you know, how well did they perform? So this is where you get points based upon performance level of students. So from limited all the way up to, I believe now it's Advanced Plus. And I've listed for you both the performance index points and the percentage and the grade for both last year and this year. And this presents a different picture, right? So with this picture, even though the threshold went up, we're holding our own, actually. There's a little blip at the middle school, but we're holding our own. So it's really important with every component on the report card. You have to dig deep because it's not always as it seems.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Holden?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go back a slide?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you said earlier is moving to 80% and really understanding the test. And, you know, I receive calls and, oh my, you know, have we seen the report card? And, you know, academic achievement is my focus. But one of the things that I did say is that you have to go in a little bit deeper to understand where there's some gains, where there's some slides, and where we are flat and holding our own. But if you look at this slide, in 2016, and I understand we went up to 80%, but it's interesting that in 2016, if you look at the intermediate school and the elementary school, that we got the same score and we moved from an F to a D,
Isn't that interesting?
It's interesting. So that's why it's important to go in a little bit deeper and look at the numbers and understanding the So.
The additional part
It's
of
a
that
good point. You
is,
can't really take any of this at face value.
Right, but the additional part of that is when you look at the test of the assessment for 16, the 16 assessment, of course, the 17 assessment is more rigorous. It's a more rigorous assessment, and we made more progress in a more rigorous assessment. So are our children growing? They're growing. Are they growing 2 years each time? Well, that's where the difficulty comes in.
Right. So I just want to talk, since we went back here, on gifted. It says not met. We actually had some pretty good gains in gifted this year. That could be a whole separate report because that calculation gets a little bit complex. So we know where we need to, what area and grade level we need to attack to really boost that. But there are 3 measures that you have to meet the gifted indicator, but there's improvement there. So the achievement component, performance index, that is weighted 75%, and indicators met is weighted 25%. So that is how we get the achievement component grades. And again, I've listed last year's compared to this year's. So again, actually, we are making some improvement. I'm sorry? So for the district, we got a D, and that's a kind of a summary of all of the buildings. And again, you notice, you look at, it's kind of to Mrs. Ruggles's point earlier. The same grades last year, the district got an F. The same grades this year, the district got a D. You got to look deep. That's why I don't know if you've been on the ODE website. There's a guide to the report card. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I still have to look at that because sometimes I read it and I'm like, what did you just say? But anyway, that's how the achievement component is calculated. Okay, gap closing. So this is also called our AMOs, annual measurable objectives. So the expectation is that all students grow. And so we are evaluated on up to 10 different student groups, and I will tell you that we have the numbers to qualify for all 10 in the district. So they are all students, American Indian, Asian, Black, Hispanic, multiracial, white, economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, and limited English proficiency. So this is the chart that indicates where you need to fall on gap closing measures. I can tell you that, again, you know, if you're interested, these are some pretty detailed reports. We had some buildings make gains, but across the board, this is probably where we need to grow. I mean, there's no running from the data. We need to grow here. And that's why you see our grades by building and by district are the same as last year for a gap closing.
And also, let me make sure you're not about to say it. Really looking at gap closing for last year, we were at 14.3. This year, we're at 24.7.
Right.
So, I mean, it's 10 percentage points. We have to go, and I just encourage everybody to go in deeper, and we're not hiding or shying away from anything, but you have to go in a little bit deeper.
Right, and that is an excellent point, and I thank you for bringing that up, because what I've tried to present to you here is really kind of the format from last year. It's probably a 30-minute overview of the report card, something that could take us all day, because just the gap closing reports for each building are probably 10 or 12 pages long, and so you have to really dig in and say, okay, just what does this mean? But thank you for pointing that out, Mrs. Ruglis. So K-3 literacy. This relates to the third grade reading guarantee. And so 2 tests are used for this measure. The third grade English language arts test and the diagnostic test that students take at the beginning of each year. So here's just some information. This is pretty standard. It is not changed from last year. So by September 30th, we're required to give all students a reading diagnostic. From that, we determine are you off track or on track. Any student who's off track gets a reading improvement plan. And then this component is calculated by taking the number of students or percentage of students who were off track last year to being on track this year in the next grade. So what that looks like is, here's our movement. So you see blue is off track and red is on track. So we have off track in kindergarten to on track in first grade, off track in first grade to on track in second grade.
And to Mrs. Ruggles' point, I think looking at the numbers from last year, I mean, we started off the year before last with 400, I believe, and 46 students off track. This year, 346 students off track with a similar number of students.
For this part of the, for this component, K-3 literacy, we really did make gains. And I'm just going to say, I think all 3 buildings can show some gains, but Primary South, it was quite evident that they were showing gains. So kudos to those teachers.
It's always interesting when you look at this off-track to on-track process, and you look at the kindergarten numbers. So it's 42.9 in 16, and 38.4 in 17, but it moves from a D to a C.
Score increased.
So it's off track to on track. Yeah. So of the 42.9%, 38.4% of that group moved to on track.
And we were at 25.6.
Right.
Yeah. This is a real bright spot in data that doesn't on the surface look so bright. One thing, I'm going to back up, if you might indulge me. Just an interesting note that the K3 literacy grade is based upon last year's state average. And so state law says that the average can't be lower than a bottom C. So you have to think about that for a little bit. In fact, I think this is directly from ODE. State law requires that the statewide average represents the bottom of the C range. So.
Wow. That's interesting.
Okay, progress. This is the data that we did not have. So progress is really made up of progress for all students, progress for gifted students, progress for students with disabilities, and progress for lowest 20%, and that the lowest 20% is the lowest 20% statewide. So again, kind of standard info about value add. Mr. Smith is really good at talking about progress, because he can talk about how our goal is to, if we don't get to proficient, you know, we really need to look at how are we growing our students from year to year. So one year of growth is the expected model. And this is solely based on the state assessments. So again, an A is more than 1 year, a C is 1 year. So here are our comparison grades from 16-17. And again, some dips. If you look at all, I think the dips at the two middle buildings really kind of were impactful for the overall district dip. Gifted actually it is not so bad. Students with disabilities, again, there were some dips there, and then lowest 20%. Some dips there. If you're wondering about the NR for the ES for gifted, you have to have at least 10, in order to get a rating, you have to have at least 10 students per grade level per subject. So you have to have 10 grade 3 gifted math. So it's not a composite number. So that's why that's NR. If you remember me talking about the gifted indicator earlier, really we need to focus a little more on identification and service of K3.
That's what I was wondering, do we have students, gifted students this year in elementary?
We do. Oh, we
that
do.
qualify for that 10 or more?
We do. 10 or more currently. Well, last year we did not.
Right. I just wondered this year if that changed.
Well, see, we'll test second grade in the spring, but that would include the students that we tested in terms of identification. It would include the students that we identified in the spring of last year. Does that make sense?
But do we have 10? Would it be measurable next year? You can get back.
I don't know because we've not done. So it would be grade 2. So we don't do that testing until the spring.
For the elementary.
But there are enough kids that fall into the category.
Right. For this year.
So they right. So they have, we have gifted kids at the ES, but the rules and the formula for the gifted indicators is pretty cut and dry. So you have to have a minimum of 10 per grade level in those areas.
Per content.
And generally,
right.
Second grade is the earliest that we test for gifted. So
there will be kids, but they haven't been identified.
Right.
Now, does the Junior Honor Society, does that reach down to the ES, or it doesn't start until National Honor Society, National Junior Honor Society?
Yeah, the National Honor Society, remember, one of the things I mentioned, they will have their first recognition program on October 5th. So they'll have an induction ceremony.
So that's the ES. So
Because
that's where we're going to
grade,
be
which means
identifying
they were
them, right?
identified as second
Well,
graders.
I would, not all children that are in the National Elementary Honor Society are considered gifted.
Right.
So
But
that's
I'm
not
saying
an
would those,
automatic.
I know that, but would those students be tested to see if they were?
That's a good
That-
question.
That's the question I'm asking.
So
I
we
could actually
do,
speak
we
from personal
do
experience.
parent request at any time. I shouldn't say at any time. Parent request will fit you in when we do our gifted testing twice a year.
Sure,
We
yeah.
do whole grade at grade 2 and grade 5.
Okay. Well, I guess I just asked that question because we just seen the thing that we were going to do, the induction of the National Honor Society, and if we're looking for
Right.
students to identify, could we then maybe look at those students
Use
as
it as
far
an
as
opportunity.
testing, I mean, you know, as a,
Right.
I don't know, a benchmark, if you will. You know, I don't know, I do understand that everybody who's in the National or the Junior National Honor Society aren't considered gifted, but could we use it as kind of a benchmark to say, you know, I don't know, I mean,
Keep in
that
mind.
was a question, not.
Yeah.
a
And that's, it's
statement.
really easy to take that list of students
Yeah.
and look at that.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
But keep in mind, there are some kids that will be classified as gifted that are not in a content area, meaning the content is art.
Right.
So-
okay, so-
So, and we get some points from that, but it's not,
Right.
it's not anywhere near what we do for core
Sure,
academic
yeah,
content.
Okay.
So to Dr. Johnson's point, could we use that as an opportunity for identification?
We
I mean, it only seems natural if said
Yeah.
student
Test
was
everybody.
inducted into National Honor Society.
So we test everybody, so the current third graders were just tested in the spring. So, and honestly, we give the Terra Nova in view at grade 2, and we give the COGAT at grade 5. But we also give a test called the Naglieri, which is a test for gifted identification that is sensitive for students for whom English is not their first language.
Right.
So we really try to hit all of our students. So if a student was tested at grade 2 and not identified, and perhaps they're in the National Honor Society at the elementary school, you know, and a parent can consult with the teacher and the principal, and they can say, look, you know, we think maybe something was off. We can retest. So when we retest whole grade, we'll slot them in there. That's always available. But testing is pretty comprehensive.
Well, yeah, I understand. I was just excited about, as far as the younger grades, the kindergarten, first and second grade, with the advancements made, that those students would be, there would be some indicators or benchmarks or something that would make them a candidate or to follow along. I'm just wondering if that's identified earlier.
Right.
And,
So our early entrance works into part of the gifted indicator. I will say, kindergarten is the research is kind of mixed on that.
Yeah, I'm not-
There's some research but it's an excellent question and one that everybody asks. You know, we're doing all of these innovative things where we're really pushing children. So, but the research is kind of mixed in terms of gifted identification at grade K.
Right. Well, I wasn't saying that they would be gifted, but they would be identified to take the test or to give those services that we want to be able to afford those students as they go along.
Right.
Well,
If they're-
I
if they
imagine
test
like,
the whole grade and
Second grade.
Second grade?
Maybe I'm gonna, yeah.
well, I imagine like
Catch
what
I would think
you're
so.
saying, Paula, is like with
Right.
the changes that we made, like to all-day kindergarten and the preschool. I mean, the fact that they're getting more, you know,
Correct.
and we won't know that until they get
Right.
through, we get through a couple of years or maybe of
Correct.
students going through that pipeline, but having that's
And
what
that,
you're-
I think
you're
I
saying, right?
understand you,
understand
Mrs.
what you're
Kuhn
saying.
now. By the time students get to grade 2 for whole
Right.
grade testing, they're
Right. They'll be
much,
more ready.
much
They would be, you know, or you
Right.
would say, okay, this student is, you know, because obviously we want all students to be moving along and we don't want to hold any back. But
Right.
I didn't know if that was an easier way to identify those students per chance, maybe. And you might already be doing that.
What's an easy way to cross-check that?
Yeah, I'm good
But
at
we do
stating the
whole
obvious,
whole
so.
grade testing for gifted.
Okay.
But I do have a question before
Okay.
were you moving on to
No.
the next slide?
No, it's fine.
Okay, it looks like with English language arts, it looks like the students are at least making, across the board with the exception of fourth grade, are making expected growth or above. Talk to me a little bit about the math. And like I see that there's some struggles there. What's the plan of approach?
The plan of approach is heavy coaching. Heavy coaching. I wish I could say, oh, I know this is why the math scores. But I unfortunately can't say that. But that's plain as day when you look at that, the drops in math. I think some of it may be teacher comfort with math, teaching math. And I think out of everything, that's what you kind of, you bring with you your experiences. And then, and some teachers will readily say it's not my strength. And I'm talking particularly in the kind of the K4 range. That may exist in 5, 6, in 7, 8, but when you get there, you start getting teachers who really, based upon licensure, have identified areas. You know, these are my licensure areas, and I'm stronger in them.
And that's the reason for the building configuration. We were trying to determine the K6, 7, 8. Some kids don't get a chance to meet a math specialist until they reach high school almost. And so when you talk about people having the rich content of being able to teach math, well, you have to teach it with an attitude, meaning you're expecting kids to do exceptionally well in it because you're comfortable with it. And that comfortableness or uncomfortableness begins to show out. You know, you may give me more literacy in the classroom and less math. So meeting the specialists as soon as possible is really to our advantage. The sooner they meet those specialists that like math, that are trained in math, the better the outcomes will be.
And we also have a program that's attached to our MAP assessment program, so that students have all taken MAP assessments in English and math, and so their results really spit out a projected either intervention or enrichment acceleration plan, and that's called Exact Path. And so each building is doing that, kind of attacking that in multiple ways. Within the classroom as stations, particularly at the younger grades, because they all have the technology to do it. And then at the ES and the IS and the MS, really in class and as an intervention, as an additional intervention. So, but it's all personalized.
So given the fact that you have the technology to track, would you say that you were surprised?
Yes.
Okay.
Because honestly, our MAP growth looked better than what we saw on the test. Now, that's comparing two things. You're comparing MAP, which is a nationally normed assessment, to the state end of year assessment. But yes, you know, I no doubt about it. Graduation rate. So again, this is seniors with who've graduated within 4 years of after first entering ninth grade, or 5 years. I don't know if anyone was confused by this, because the letter grades and percentages were exactly the same as last year, but the numbers are different. So. So the 4-year, so for the component grade of graduation rate, the 4-year rate is weighted 60%, and then the 5-year rate is weighted 40%. And so we were exactly the same, even the percentages, but the end, the numbers, student numbers are different. Just a preview. This is likely to change because the state of Ohio, we were just informed, has to change their graduation rate calculation for students with disabilities based upon ESSA. So
I was going to ask the question of the 15% of students that did not graduate what does that number look like? And I think you kind of alluded to it, students with, maybe some students with disabilities, and or who or
I
just
won't
students who
necessarily
didn't
say
do-
that.
No, I'm not saying all students with
Um,
disabilities. I'm saying, what does that makeup look like?
I
Does it
think
look
we,
like somebody
we
didn't-
know that when the state changed to the, kind of penalized the 5-year piece, a lot of that group was students with disabilities who were exercising their right given by the federal government to take 5 years to complete their education without penalty. But, and beyond 5, really, to age 22. So it's, sure, there probably are some special ed students, but that's not that
Oh,
that
no,
whole
no, no.
group.
And I don't want to give the impression that that's what I'm
Right.
saying. I'm like, are there students, the second group was my students who may have just not done what they needed to do?
Yes.
What does that makeup look like?
Yes. Because you take this year's 9th grade, for example. If there are 300 kids, the state tracks them by student ID, so we know exactly who those 300 are. As they exit, that comes off our number. As we add kids, that goes on. And not just a number, that particular child. And so that's how they do that adjusted cohort rate. So I would love to say, hey, I think I can nail down what that, kind of who is in that group. It's
Okay.
difficult, but yeah.
But we have no interest in moving a student who needs additional work. We're not going to do it. It's just the wrong thing to do, because you put a young person out there, he'll prepare to do very much, where you could have given him some additional skills along the way. It's the ethical thing to do. As according to your report card, it may not look like the right thing to do, but when you talk about your ethical behavior as it relates to students, it's the right thing to do.
Right,
If
exactly.
they need additional help, they get additional help. If they don't meet the 5-year threshold, they don't meet the 5-year threshold. As long as they could leave here with some solid skills of how they're going to take care of themselves in the future, that's what our district should be about.
And I would be okay if the number was even lower, long as we're not passing kids
That's right.
through
Right.
without the skills that they need.
Right. I agree. Prepared for success. This is another one where you really have to dig a little bit to make sure that you kind of understand what this means. So the state says, hey, this is how well schools are preparing kids for all future opportunities. So, ACT. So we have participation, and then how many who participated are remediation free. Same with SAT. For most of the prepared for success data, I'm going to tell you that there are just slight differences. Some are increases, some are decreases. But in order to get a grade for this component, here's how they calculate it. So any student who gets remediation free on the ACT earns a point, or on the SAT earns a point. Okay? You get nothing for participation, just let me say that. Any student who earns an honors diploma gets a point. Any student who earns at least 12 points on an industry recognized credential earns a point. Okay? So then you have this last two. What I did not include on here, because we just do not offer it, is International Baccalaureate. So for advanced placement and dual enrollment, if we have students who earn a score of 3 or better, and students who earn at least 3 credits in dual enrollment, that's great. We get no points for them unless they've also earned 1 point in one of those other categories. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
Yep, exactly.
No.
So, if you earn a point because you're remediation free in the ACT or SAT, and a point an honors diploma and a point because you have an industry recognized credential. Then the student can earn us 0.3 extra if they've also scored 3 or better on an AP exam or have earned at least 3 credits dual enrollment. That's lovely if you make assumptions that you need one for the other. Does that make sense? So I might be able to get an AP score of 3 or better, but I might not be remediation free because that's not your total score. Mm-hmm. You have to meet the remediation free component in each subtest.
Can you explain mediation free?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
So the College Board has identified subtest scores that indicate the student can go to college and really not have to be enrolled in any type of remedial courses and can walk in and do college level coursework.
And you're talking about based on the ACT and the SAT scores?
Both have remediation free scores. And I don't know that I can pull the ACT off the top of my head. I'm going to tell you, for example, the reading is a 22. Mm-hmm. We might have some of our math students, I've seen it when I was principal, they might have a 21. They might have high scores in all the other tests, but you have to have it in every piece, and then that's how you earn the other points.
Every piece? Like that, you have to do the ACT and the SAT?
No.
Or just
Or either or, but
oh,
each component of the test.
Okay, so honors diploma and an industry credential, or is it or?
No, or.
Okay.
So the most a student can earn here, or the most points we can get per student is 1.3.
Okay.
Right. So you don't get any 0.3s on your own. You have to have earned a point first to be eligible for the elevator of 0.3.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does 0.3 translate to?
I don't know, and several years ago I got into a discussion with someone from ODE about this because it's just, for me, in my view, is another penalty for some schools. Mm-hmm. But that's what it is.
If you call up President Miranda and ask ODE what is a 0.3 tell you, you
Won't
wish
be
you
a
had
pleasant
made the
conversation.
call. You wish you had made the call.
My point exactly, Superintendent Smith. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to discourage you, but I'm sure you have better things to do.
Actually, I wish you did.
We still have, as you can tell, we still have some inconsistencies with the accountability piece for ODE. The 3rd grade state averages would be one, I would say, jumps to the top. Again, the district ratings coming in 2018. And the AMO targets were also increased this year. But you know, the data is what it is, but I want to leave you with some things to consider, some points to consider. So any row highlighted is where we fell. So I took the spreadsheet from the state and counted and—
Look at this one very, very carefully.
This slide is
Yes.
very telling.
So out of indicators met, 490 districts. I think if you added, it's 608 or 609 schools.
Yeah.
490 districts.
These are public school districts. This does not even include charters, etc. almost 81% of the districts scored an F.
Which should tell you something.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience, life is a bell-shaped curve in some
So-
way, shape, or form.
There's no curve at all.
So
80% of districts got a C or lower on performance index.
80%.
More than a third of districts got an F in value added. So that's an interesting curve if you were to plot that out. You're either here or you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Gap, in terms of gap closing, again, almost half of the districts in Ohio received an F.
This is the
Yeah, it's an inverted. Yeah, it's an inverted.
And then achievement, half of the districts received a D. And overall progress, again, this is, it's all over. So a quarter at a D, almost a quarter at an A. But I guess I'll answer any questions, but I think for me, and I know for Mr. Smith, and I know he's very passionate about this, is that the line that runs through really even more, I think, than race, although they're pretty integrally entwined, is poverty. If you look at those particular districts on the spreadsheet, and that's easily available on ODE, it's almost like there's a red light flashing about the impact of poverty.
So are you
on traditional
indicating that you
achievement
think
measures.
that the tests are not geared toward people with poverty, or
Well, let me
not?
answer.
What
Let me
does
answer
that
Dr.
mean?
Johnson. Okay, so we know that there's a direct correlation between poverty and achievement, at least the way these tests are assessed. And what we're saying to the public and also to the board, we're taking the challenge on. We don't care. We're saying we know there's some bias there, and what we've done is we've transformed ourselves to meet those conditions. It will take us a while to do it. Some districts are saying, okay, we know there's a bias here. This is where we are. We can't do anything about it. They've not been bold enough to transform themselves into something better. So with the board's approval, our transformation is our PBL. It's our new tech experience. And kids are gravitating to that faster and better than anything else. I'll never sit here and say, we can't figure out what to do next. There's always a next. And so once we put it into place, then we have to start, acting on it and getting kids engaged into the work. So is it going to take a while for it to happen? Yes, because we knew that what we were doing before, and this is where the real experience comes in, wasn't going to get us where we wanted to be. So we had to take a stab at it and say, we're going to transform ourselves to something else. Yes.
And one of the things
And some
that
districts are waiting for the state to change their scores to make them lower. That's not going to happen. Dr. Holden mentioned about the on-grade testing for social studies. Well, a smart person might say, all right, let's stop doing the socials, teaching the social studies. We can concentrate on something else. Beware, because the state is going to come back with social studies at some point in time, and you will have a gap in your learning because you didn't do it.
Right.
Dr. Johnson, I believe, I don't want you to misunderstand me, I believe our students are capable of achieving.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. I think for me we see this, and yet districts like Winton Woods, we're still held up against other districts where the state indicates or presents it as there's a level playing field, and there is not a level playing field. And it's not about whether we think our kids can achieve, absolutely. But what happens is each year, people beat themselves up because, we are our data is up there compared to all of those districts for whom poverty is not an issue. And so, money buys opportunity and experience, and that gives a kid a leg up in school. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Well, the other
Everything
part,
you're saying.
the state is, and I looked at the letter. It was just an interesting letter. The state wants me to be on the task force to study the correlation between poverty and achievement. Well, we've been only doing that for like 100 years. And I'm saying, okay, you want me to be on this committee to tell you what you already know? I'm saying make the assessments fair, and then our kids will actually meet the challenges. We don't want the state to water anything down, to change the process. We're going to rise and meet the challenges because that's what our teachers are expecting to do. That's what our administrators are geared to do. The teaching and learning department is saying, we can do it. And if you start having the attitude where your people that are doing the work with the kids believe that we can do it, we will do it. We're not into the woe is me. That won't get us anywhere.
And I think the other part that Ms. Ruggles mentioned, you know, we could go and make excuses about what's happened. They're facts. If the state says, here's where you need to go, then that's where we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really that simple. And it's all about the attitude of the people doing the work.
And what I was going to add is, poverty, achievement, get it. You're right. We've been studying that forever. We already know it. But of all the slides, and I thank you for providing a comprehensive review of the slides. The last slides are the ones that I probably care least about. And I know that it makes sense for those who are trying to understand where we are. But Superintendent Smith said something a long time ago, and that's where I know we are, and I know where we should be. We don't care about the other schools, we care about the kids here and where we're going and what we're doing to move them forward. And it seems as if we have some plans in place to get there, and we have to use this data. And I really wish you would have maybe given a little bit more about the gains, because you're gonna have, we've done some great things, and we're not shying away from where we're not doing well, but there's some pretty significant changes there, and we have to find a way to tell our story. And when there's an opportunity to tell our story where we've gained, I'm just saying it would be good to highlight that.
The state is, ODE has made this agreement kind of with districts that says, if you want to, when they click on your report card, if you want to have your quality report right next to it, we encourage you to do it. Well, we created the quality report, meaning we're going to put it out there anyway, regardless if they say it, because it's our work, and we're saying that we're not just about the report card, we're about other things. But when you look at the sentiments of the community says, okay, we are about the report card, so superintendent, let's go faster. How do we get it done? And you will not hear the teachers make excuses about it, nor will anybody in the administrative ranks, because we understand what we have to do. One of the safeguards, once we get the scores where we want them to be, all we have to do is not worry, because ODE will change it again. So that's their work. And I don't know if they are trying to support charter schools in a very interesting way, but that's just my suspicion. You know, anybody who knows me knows that I believe in this theory about everybody's trying to circumvent your work, and I believe it wholeheartedly. The conspiracy theory lives with me every single day. So is this an opportunity to give charter another opportunity to grow? Absolutely it is. But when you start looking at their results, well, Winton Woods looks like it's the Yale of the city. So there we go.
And just to point out one of your many points that you made earlier, Dr. Holden, back on the indicators met.
Yes.
That is an awesome point, I think, for us to be communicating to the community and in all the various outlets that you plan on having this presentation, because even though the rigor is higher and the cut score was higher, we still made gains. And I think that's a great summary to kind of encapsulate all of this, because if you're a parent or anyone in our community that just looks at this, all you see is a bunch of D's and F's if you don't dive deeper. You know, so that's a great overall point for me. And also good to know too that we're making significant gains in the third grade reading guarantee, because I don't think that was really the expectation of some folks at the State House for us public school districts to meet that requirement. So keep going, keep driving that nail a little deeper in what we're not supposed to meet and expect, because that hopefully will account for something. But then again, you never know, right? So thank you, Dr. Holden, for this presentation. Any other questions, concerns, comments for Dr. Holden or Superintendent Smith? No? All right. Okay, Superintendent Smith, we will move into 8.04.
Yes, thank you. If you notice the change in 8.03, so thank you, Ms. Miranda.
Oh, yes, 8.03.
Yeah, Mr. Daniels
I even had it
is
highlighted
out
on my
ill
screen and I
today.
looked at the next number.
He's out ill today, so
Okay.
we're going to move that into another time.
Okay,
But
perfect.
I'm happy that I gave you guys the overview in the superintendent's update, so you're at least familiar with it.
Yes.
Okay, so here are the first reads of, for the board's information and discussion. Is there anything on these first reads that you have questions or concerns about?
I do, Superintendent. On 5400, it's regarding attendance, and it changes the measurement of absences from days to hours.
Yes.
Okay, and then what is a standard school day by hours? Is it 8 hours? Is it 6 hours? Is it 5 hours? Okay, so does that make it more days or less days based on what it was before?
Well, it's actually, yeah, we won't ever have to worry about not having enough days or hours, because once they did the conversion, it actually works to every district's advantage.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to just
Yeah,
qualify.
that's a
So
good
5
question.
hours is.
Thank you.
is 7.5 hours is okay.
We ran into something very interesting where when we were doing one of the updates, I know that it was something that was puzzling to me and Dr. Holden. When Norm came and he spoke about a student who misses 24 hours of instruction must have an aide with them after that. And we were thinking, that's a day. No, it's not a day. That's several days. So when we heard 24 hours, yes, so you have to count the hours that goes along with it, because I'm panicking. You know, some of our kids, when they've gone on trips, they've missed more than a day. So, yeah.
So is it, she said 5
5.
hours is a state requirement, but we have a 7.5 hour day. So when you say
We will exceed it.
24 hours, you're looking at like 3
7.5 hours is your
days.
definition?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, right?
Almost 4.
Because it's
About 8
plus
hours.
some,
21,
but
yes.
at least 3 days you're talking. I think.
Yes.
Okay.
More, Ms. Kuhn?
Yeah. Let's see. The 5610, I think I read my little scratch here.
Suspensions?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. I should read my writing. It made sense to me when I wrote this last night. It escaped me now at the moment. I'll go back to that in a moment.
Well, I can tell you what the issue is with this one, 5610. So in the past, if a student committed some offense at the end of the school year and you gave him 80 days, it can carry over to this. As soon as the next school year starts, he's home, he can come back to school. No matter if his offense was the last day of school or whatever the issue was, you can't really have him carry over. So people think that it's actually a good one. However, when you look at what you're doing for the community of learners, depending on how you affected the community, it's awkward. It's awkward. So a kid can time that situation and do something very egregious to the community. When I use the term community, I'm talking about the school community. And he gets to come back to school, you know, as soon as school starts, if he did it the last week of school. That's pretty incredible.
And then I had a question on the graduation requirements 5460. I just wanted to make sure that it was listed. It was a little bit confusing to me because when you put the credit hours next to social studies, it was built in over here instead of over to the side. Sorry for the audience that can't see my visual picture with my fingers, but it didn't say 3 units of social studies. It was a little bit confusing to read for the first read, and I was hoping to have that corrected a little bit.
What I can do is I can actually create a chart that will actually show it to you in a clear version.
And I think it'd make it easier to understand what the requirements for students to follow. I think it's really important,
Okay.
especially if we want to emphasize ability for our students to do above and beyond, to give them goals and incentives.
Good point.
And if they're younger and they know what they want to go after, instead of waiting till it's too late to have that opportunity. And for parents too, who, just like anything, if you don't do things all the time, you want to have that opportunity earlier to decide.
I agree.
And then one other thing, the recording, it was 2461, about the parents asking to record, and they have to ask for advance notice. What type of time frame and advance notice do they have? Is it 24 hours or 5 days? Or?
As they're walking
just
in the
right
door.
before they can, like instantly, and that would give the district enough time to be able to record it as well, I think, which was one of the requirements.
With modern technology, almost everyone is still out
Okay,
some sort of recording device.
okay. That, I just wanted to make sure we,
See, it's not, I don't want you to get the impression it's like you're having a conversation with a parent. It's like Waycross coming in and they're setting up equipment.
Right.
It's a very simple
Yeah.
piece of technology,
Okay.
and they're saying, I'm going to record. Now, do I believe that there have been recordings of conversations without your knowledge? Of course it has been, but we wouldn't operate that way.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just wanted to,
And that policy actually has less to do with like tape recorders.
with audio.
It was that angel technology
Mm-hmm.
that parents were using where they would put it on their child and send them to school, and no one would know that there was a recording.
What's an angel technology? What would that
It's
mean?
called angel sense, and it's just some sort of high-tech way to search and
It's almost like a little iPad.
Is it video and audio record, just audio? Oh, okay.
And so what that policy does is it prohibits that kind of thing.
Yeah, I saw that on there. It's called Angel. Okay. That helps, because that was interesting, some of these policies, so.
That was called Angel Technology, the recording? Angel Sense. I don't know.
Poor Ron.
I looked it up.
Get that Kindle out.
You know it.
Any further questions, concerns on these first read policies?
These will be voted on next board meeting?
Yeah, and if you guys have additional conversations, you know, you can contact me, send me an email, and I'll walk you through it. Some of the policies are a little more thorough than others, but
Okay, well, seeing no more, before we move on to section 9, I neglected to mention something, Dr. Holden, that just dawned on me. To, I guess, strengthen or reiterate the point Dr. Johnson and I were making regarding the gifted testing, I just want to make sure that this district becomes the district of perhaps over-testing in the gifted area, because I think that would be great to over-test in that area versus something else that we may be criticized for over-testing in another area. So that was our point, not to be snarky or anything, but that the day will come where the Winton Woods City School District is not only a destination district, but a district that likes to over-test in gifted, and I see that as a good thing, not a bad thing, because we want to over-identify those students. Thank you. All right, Superintendent, back to you for 9.01.
yes, Madam President and Board, the recommendation is to approve personnel schedules as presented. Schedule A, resignations and retirements. B, certificated staff. C, support staff. D, extra duty and supplemental employment. And finally, Schedule E, leaves.
Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a recommendation to approve personnel schedules as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Douglas?
Aye.
Mrs. Moran?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and we'll move into 9.02.
Yes, this is a exciting opportunity for our kids to attend a incredible trip to Walt Disney World. So this will be over spring break. No academic time will be lost, and it's actually an opportunity for the band. So this is it's a great thing simply because if you have heard the band lately, we have been to football games and activities, and I can tell you, based on what people assume about Winton Woods City Schools, it's an incredible sounding band, and it's the largest band that we've actually performed against this year. So it's about a 140-piece band. The goal is for all of the students to get to go. There will be some performances at Walt Disney World, and so our kids can get some international exposure. And again, it's a recruiting tool for us, you know, to say that your band had the pleasure of going to perform at Walt Disney World. The only other trip that I'm looking forward to in the near future is playing in the Macy's Day Parade. And once we get that one, we will be iconic all over the country. So The recommendation is to approve the proposal for overnight extended trip Winton Woods High School Band Spring Break 2018 as presented.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal for the overnight extended student trip for the Winton Woods High School Band during spring break of 2018 to Orlando as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions?
I just have one question about the fundraising. So are the students doing fundraising right now to raise their money
Yes.
for,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And when you go to different parts of the community and you talk about the music program and you talk about the fundraisers and you talk about, everybody knows about music at Winton Woods. Everybody knows about Disney World, so they go together. And people are like, sure, I'll help you get there. I think our kids will be ecstatic about everything that's going to go with it. Again, if there are 140 musicians, I want 140 kids to go.
Well,
Some
that was
kind
the
of way.
one point that I was looking at, because they do break the cost down. If more
The more-
students go, the price is a bit cheaper.
Yes.
So, I mean, that means that everybody needs to be trying to raise money, which may or may not be going on. So,
It's going on.
It's going on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have purchased some cookie dough already.
I have
Everybody
not,
knows about
so-
cookie dough. So.
Yes, I have not purchased cookie dough, so I'll be getting in touch with Danny Ashwood.
And I think one of the
Headed your way.
Yeah, these are headed my way.
But one of the major things about fundraisers,
Oatmeal raisin,
everybody
please.
has a great idea about what can raise funds, but it has to raise enough money fast enough.
Yes.
So it has to be something that people are interested in. You know, you could say, hey, I think this is a great idea, but if it only raises a small amount of money, bad idea,
Right.
but you don't have time to go back and retool yourself.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Where can I get information about the cookie dough?
The students are the ones that came
Yeah.
to me.
They should probably,
Yeah.
can we get it in our mailboxes perhaps?
I think if
Like a
every
sport?
board member
That's
gave
okay, I'll just-
$1,000, I think the cookie dough would be great.
That's okay.
Strawberry
That's
shortcake.
Oh,
Strawberry shortcake, I've never seen that.
So did we think about the transportation of the instruments and the
All of
extra
that.
cost?
Everything.
All that is
Everything.
included in
Everything.
there? Okay.
Everything.
The tuba
Everything.
too?
Everything.
The
Everything.
sousaphone, yeah, that big old thing.
Everything.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that kind of changes the prices. You know, if you were taking a choir, it's a different process because of how you transport equipment. So, yeah, you pay the price to be in a band.
It does say based on 3 motor coaches, you
Yeah,
know,
that
so
is
they have to transport the instruments.
Some board members driving SUVs.
Any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and Superintendent, back to you for 9.03.
Ms. Wilson, would you come up and talk about the memorandum of understanding between Winton Woods City School Board of Education and Winton Woods teachers?
Okay, and I'm not sure which one you're looking at, but we have 3 actually. One memorandum of understanding between the board and the Teachers Association addresses our high deductible health insurance plan. Do you have that one in front of you?
I only see 2, and it looks like the first one we're on is between the board and the Teachers Association, local OEA, NEA.
Okay, so what you actually have is one sheet with 2 associations that have agreed to a change in our...
No, I think they're looking at the one for your mentorship first.
Not if it has OEA
Yes.
on it. Or I'm not sure.
OEA,
It's the one that
NEA.
mentions the 3-year resident educator
Oh,
mentorship.
okay.
And mentor teachers.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
Okay, well, this memorandum of understanding amends section 8.0206 of our contract with the Teachers Association. Basically, when we negotiated it a few years ago, the resident educator program was relatively new and it's evolved, and the state has rewritten it. In fact, most recently, there was a proposal to completely do away with it because there's been so much criticism about how cumbersome it is, especially for a New Year teacher. But the state, backed off of the idea that it was going to be eliminated altogether, and they've refined it. And so what they've done is they've made year 3 much more light than what we anticipated when we negotiated the rate of pay for the mentor. We thought it would be very cumbersome, a lot of work, like years 1 and 2. So in recognition of that, we wanted to make clear that a $500 stipend in year 3 is more than enough for a resident educator mentor, regardless of how many mentees he or she has, or resident educators he or she has. And the union agreed and said that was fair, and so we're just amending that piece of the contract. So it's a flat rate of $500, and that is spelled out on the very back in paragraph 2. So accordingly, effective with the 2017-18 school year, the board and the association agree to reduce the 3-year mentor pay from $500 per resident educator to a flat rate of $500, irrespective of the number of resident educators assigned to a mentor. Do you have any questions?
First, could we put the motion on the table and then we'll...
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education and the Teachers Association Local OEA NEA as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any questions? Comments, concerns?
I do have a question. So a mentor would be compensated the first year, second year, third year at the lower rate. Then on fourth year, does the mentee not need mentoring anymore? And would they also qualify to become a mentor at some point later on? Or
So the 4th year is just a series of assessments, and so there's not a whole lot of work other than making sure that the mentee's on track and has submitted everything. So there's no compensation for year 4. So what we have is sort of it tapers. Like there's a whole lot of work up front. Year 2 is pretty cumbersome. Year 3 is lighter, and then year 4 is just kind of like, okay, you're good to go. Take your assessment and submit your portfolio. And if everything's gone well, it shouldn't be any work at all.
So now, how, on average, I mean, I don't have any idea, so how many mentees would someone have in year 3? I mean, it may not be cumbersome, it might just be something to keep track of. I'm just asking a question, how many do they have?
We've had resident educator mentors that have up to like 3 or 4.
Okay.
So for example, special ed teachers are kind of notorious for that. So at the high school, if we have one veteran special ed teacher and we've hired maybe 3 special ed teachers, she may, very well, and it's usually Denise Davenport, but she usually will take that role on. We try not to do that unless it's necessary, but special education I can say is one. Same thing with our counselors. One year we had a whole crop of new counselors and we had 1 veteran. So that veteran ended up mentoring all of the new counselors. Trying to think of other examples. But the teacher has to agree to it, and if there's ever an issue, we would address it. And there's a lot of support from the state. The training is actually from the state, and it's very prescribed. So it's not something they're making up. They're following a timeline, a script, and just a real tight procedure.
So they volunteer for it. They're not voluntold.
Well, they're
encouraged.
They're encouraged. And we try to incentivize it with a little love token of, $1,500. And $1,500 per resident educator. If you've got 3, that's a nice little.
Well, the state was concerned, teachers were concerned and administrators were concerned when the state says we're going to get rid of the resident educators opportunity, because number one, I think teachers were turning off. They were like, okay, I don't have any support, and that means that the profession, when you look at the year 2025, you won't have enough people because it will actually outdo itself. So people said, listen, I need some support in order to engage children the appropriate way. And I'm glad that it was restored because that could have been a disaster.
Well, it also becomes a little bit of a feeder into your district for the people who you're mentoring.
Like
if
the lady.
That's what I was going to say. Yes. She came in as a student teacher and she's still here.
So that's a little different, but yes, our student teacher program. So those are, we have mentors, so supervising teachers who take on university students.
Oh, okay.
But this is a teacher that is new to the profession, who's newly licensed.
Who could be changing their mind like after a week.
Yeah, year
Right.
1, 2, 3, and 4 of their first license.
Well, I want to say I like this program. I think it's very powerful. It's good at retention. New teachers, just like anybody even new in a position, have to learn. They're going to make some mistakes. So it's nice to have somebody to help aid them so that, of course, our children, my first child was my test child. I got a little bit better, but so our children get, survive that testing. But they'll have that protection. But teachers, we want to keep our teachers. We want to teach them well. We want to give them a great environment. And I think this is a great opportunity to reward our teachers that are veteran teachers, to give them the kind of an attaboy and appreciation.
I think, Ms. Kuhn, you hit the nail on the head. I think one of the things that would be most exciting is when you guys are at events and activities, if you let the teachers, okay, we see the report card, but if you would let the teachers know that, hey, we appreciate your work, we appreciate your commitment, we know things are changing, we know you're moving in the right direction, we're saying stay focused and stay with the plan. That information coming from the board, it would make a world of difference to our staff.
I have a question for, so there's a compensation for the students? For the teachers, is that from the district or is that a program with the state?
So the resident educator program is an unfunded state mandate.
There you go.
Of course.
So the state said, districts, you must do this, but in order to get people to do it, which the first few years were literally a nightmare. And I just want to give kudos to our resident educator coordinator, Mimi Alloway. She has learned along with the state as this has evolved over the years and done a really good job of bringing us along. So kudos to her. She's at the elementary school. But so the state does not pay for it, but they require it in all districts. I've done a survey among my colleagues in the southwestern region of Ohio, and all districts are paying something, and the rates vary, and we're sort of in the middle.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Douglas?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move into 9.04.
Okay. So this is another memorandum of understanding with our teachers union as well as with our classified union, OPSI. And this was at the request of the treasurer. But basically, the regulations around high deductible health.
What classified means?
Classified would be non-teaching. So our custodians, our food service workers, our paraprofessionals, and whatnot, everyone but teachers and administrators. But this agreement is basically in response to a change in the federal law about how much can be, what the maximum deductibles of high deductible healthcare plans can be. And so we are just increasing it, but so that we are not penalizing our employees, we're doing something called holding them harmless by increasing our contribution to their accounts in the same amount to make up the difference. Mr. Seymour, would you like to add anything to that explanation?
It's only on the single plans, that's all.
Oh, that's good to know. Board, a motion would be in order for 9.04.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education and Winton Woods Teachers Association, along with, make sure I cover everyone, the local OEA, NEA, and Ohio Association of Public School Employees, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, and chapter number 271 as presented.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Douglas?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we'll move into 9.05.
Yes, the proclamation of National School Bus Safety Week. Whereas the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education recognizes the critical and important role that bus drivers are entrusted with on a daily basis. And whereas the Winton Woods City School Board of Education commends the dedication of these drivers who provide safe transportation for the students and staff members of our district. And whereas bus drivers demonstrate a positive role model to reinforce the importance of education and support for family, schools, and community. And whereas the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education, as a stakeholder in the educational development of these children, expresses its appreciation and support for the drivers and staff of the Winton Woods Transportation Department. Now therefore be it resolved that the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education proclaims the week of October 16th to the 20th, 2017 to be a week of sincere appreciation for the important role of the staff of the Transportation Department of our school district. The recommendations to approve the resolution as presented.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution of the National School Bus Safety Week, October the 16th through the 20th, 2017, as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we'll move into section 10 of our agenda this evening. Starting with the legislative report, we kind of went over some legislative items in our last meeting with the superintendent's update, and I have two additional things I wanted to read to you, my board colleagues, and I'll bring more information on these as it unfolds to next meeting, hopefully. But then, of course, if that information takes longer to unfold, I'll bring it to you when it's ready, because that's highly likely. So some House activity. The House passed what's called House Bill 235, which outlines the state's procedures for the General Assembly's approval or disapproval of the state's ESSA plan. So more to come on that. And then also you'll see, I didn't print out a briefcase for you this evening, but you got it via email, so you'll see under that legislative report that the General Assembly also passed, or not passed, but introduced a bill called House Bill 342, which seeks to eliminate August elections in the state of Ohio, which matters to public entities and school districts, public school districts as well, because that is an election cycle that is used often. So that has been introduced, and I'll keep you posted where that goes from here. But that is just an introduction to correct my first statement. It was not passed. It's just an introduction. And with that said, we'll turn the table to you, Mr. Birdie, for your Great Oaks report.
And I believe I gave everyone a copy of just some legislative information related to the career technical portion of the education program. And there's a PowerPoint presentation regarding some budget implications surrounding them, and I think, you know, one of the highlights obviously is the school funding for education and the budget change of 1% in fiscal year 18 and 1.1% in fiscal year 19. So there's not a lot of extra money coming anybody's way at this point. And then there is one student spotlight. There was a Winton Woods student that was in the student spotlight report, Mr. Miles White. All for me.
All right. There are no board motions or recommendations, so we'll just move straight into comments. Dr. Johnson?
I don't have any comments, thank you.
All right, Mr. Birdie?
I'd just like to echo some of the things that Mr. Smith indicated, like the preschool, the Project One exhibit night. I think that'll be, I hope to get to that. Having a grandson now in the preschool program, I'm kind of interested in seeing what's going on there. Let the community know building steering design committee meetings are happening on a fairly regular and frenetic pace with building design. I think one of the next steps, the last meeting I was at, was bringing in campus and department staff to take a look at what's going on with those buildings. And then obviously congratulations to the Winton Woods football team for the win over LaSalle. That was really impressive. Good thing nice to see. So thank you very much. That's it.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Well, great things are happening in the Winton Woods City Schools. I went to the LaSalle game, and it was, first of all, parking was a beast. So if we're going to another one, make sure you get there early.
I so much appreciate our parking situation
Oh,
here compared to
right.
LaSalle. I think I parked about 2 miles away and walked through residential areas to get to the.
So, I mean, the energy in the stands was very contagious. So I think good things are happening inside and out. For the community member from Springfield Township, I'm assuming Springfield Township, that dropped off the school supplies, please identify yourself and thank you, thank you, thank you. Our community wants to get involved, and finding opportunities for them to stay involved is really something that I'm passionate about. And so any teachers that need school supplies, just let me know. We can get them to you. And on top of that, you know, when we're talking about good things that's happening, it really warmed my heart to hear about Isaac Sneed, you know, really reaching out and taking the time to take care of an opponent. So that was great. And lastly, just want to say that we lost a fellow colleague in CPS, Mr. Chris Nelm. So want to send warm thoughts to his family and the entire Cincinnati Public Schools family as well. He'll be sorely missed.
Mrs. Kuhn?
I have nothing less to say. No, but I wanted to say congratulations to our football team for their win over LaSalle. One of my people that worked for me, her son plays football for LaSalle. So I was secretly, I had to be very diplomatically nice. But, no, it was they played a very good game. It was a well-matched matchup, and I think it was a great performance. One other thing, and just to borrow the thing on a young man who reached out, and during this time we live in right now, I think it's important that we look past a lot of things. We go to the core nature of who we are as people and help each other, because that's really, without doing that, we won't get very far. And I want to encourage our families to participate with their teachers to push us to the next level. I'm in sales, and I'm very driven and focused on achieving higher and higher and higher. One of my favorite sayings to my staff is, I'm like, good job, do it again. I don't let them rest. I keep pushing the bar higher and higher and higher. I want our students to walk into school every single day. I don't care where you come from, because life is unfair no matter where you're at. But we can rise above those challenges, and our students can do it, and we can set the benchmark for the rest of the state. And I don't care about testing. I mean, I do, but I don't. But if we're teaching, we will pass every test, whatever anybody puts forward to us. So I think our students are very capable. They're wonderful. They're exciting. And I know our district will rise to the challenge, and I appreciate our teachers and the power that they represent every day. So that's sort of my little 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Mrs. Kuhn. To piggyback off of that and the comment that the superintendent made earlier in our gifts and introductions, is I just love the diversity of our public school district. The inclusion that we have here in our buildings is amazing, and you can clearly see that in our students and our staff. So that was a great thing to point out there. And also to piggyback onto that, September 15th to October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month. So Felicidades and Happy Hispanic Heritage Month to a large portion of our population, of our students and families here. And October is National Bullying Awareness Month. So I know in the past our school district was partnering with the Sandy Hook Promise, so I'm hoping some of that's still going on. I still get the emails, so really, really great to see that, and the initiative of our students to include their classmates and not put them down in any way. So that's great. So great job that you're doing there, Superintendent. All right. I don't see anyone from either of our unions present. Yes, Superintendent Smith?
The board gave me the challenge to meet with local superintendents about the league situation. And I'm happy to say that the 3 gentlemen, and I'm going to get you their names so you can maybe send them something personally. They didn't take it lightly. I had the pleasure of addressing all the superintendents about the disparity as it relates to being in a league. And we have found an interesting test case, and I'd like to just read the first parts of it.
A Michigan high school athletic league that failed to admit certain school districts with significant black student enrollment will invite 6 of the schools into their league under an agreement reached today with the Justice Department. This agreement will ensure that once excluded schools will be able to compete with their other conference schools in all sports and extracurricular activities. This is a test case that once they filed it with the Office of Civil Rights, it became a unanimous decision. So I'm only reading this to you to let you know that that's our next step, because our kids deserve to be in front of the right people at the right time. And I was very, very encouraged by the other superintendents, because they didn't know, some of them, that we were not in a league, because those are the ones that it's like, okay, we wouldn't be in your league, so you're wondering like, well, what league are you in? Well, you know, you're not in ours, but they realize now, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense that you're not in a league.
Sure.
So this is a very interesting test case, and between Mr. Lumpkin and Ms. Wilson, they're doing the research on it to figure out just what our next steps are, because I can tell you we're going to get ourselves in a league. And people may think beating LaSalle or Moeller or Elder keeps us out. I think that for those GCL schools, and kudos to them for playing us where other people don't want to, I don't think that gets us closer or further away from a league. It's just the attitude of the people saying that you don't deserve to be here simply because of what you look like, and not really about your competitiveness on the field. So stay tuned to this. I'm excited about what's going to happen next.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, very much so. Anything from you, Treasurer Seymour?
No, thank you.
So I don't see any representatives from our unions, and
Whole thing? Or is it just one sheet?
just one page maybe?
Is it just one page? One page? Okay.
That's all.
Thank
we
you,
need.
Superintendent.
That's all I need. Thank you.
We do have a need for an executive session this evening. I'm trying to see which would be appropriate here. Okay, so I'm going to exercise my board member privilege and call an executive session, or make a motion for an executive session to discuss disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action. Got that, Mr. Seymour?
I'll get that later.
Okay. It's been motioned and seconded. Any questions, concerns? All right, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Dr. J.
I'm sorry. Okay. Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Moran?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will move into executive session. There will be no further board business after the executive session concludes, so thank you to Waycross, our esteemed community partner. And have a great evening.